We are live. Welcome to my thoughts on Eyes of Wakanda, Season 1, Episode 2, Legends and Lies. This episode is rated TV-14, so will this video be? And let's see, there's going to be spoilers for everything MCU leading up to and including this episode. And yeah, another episode I loved. So let's see, okay, I'm gonna, yeah, so it's very interesting to have this story set during, this is, I'm afraid I forget a number of the details, but when I was younger, I really, really loved stories about, you know, Odysseus and Troy and all this, I made a video just talking at length about the Armand Asante, The Odyssey, that miniseries, which starts with them taking Troy, I think it is. And there's also the Wolfgang Petersen movie Troy, also really solid. So yeah, very very cool bit of, you know, I've yeah, to set this during that and have this alternate history, which, I mean, I I don't remember enough of the details to say if this, like, hypothetically could basically have been the case, but I mean, ultimately it is also it's set in the MCU. The MCU is not quite our world. Things have happened there that did not in the real world. Um, Also wasn't expecting. I swear, I didn't know this episode would be this way when I planned to watch and do a video on Reservoir Dogs, which was just a few days. Was that day before yesterday, I guess. I'm not going to be spoiling that movie in this video, don't worry. But yeah, both of them have this theme of trust and, you know, yeah. And it's well handled in both of these. It's very impressive. Like, I did genuinely get somewhat emotionally involved. Like, I don't know that I would say it was like super heartbreaking, but I think they did the best they could with the amount of time. And it's also one of those things, like, I don't know that this would have, like, if they make it, I'll watch it, but I'm not sure that, I mean, if this had been a movie instead, like, hypothetically, I mean, do we just have scene after scene where he's hiding it and just biding his time? Or do you, like, I guess they could come up with multiple missions he has to accomplish along the way, but yeah. But it works really well for this, it was like less than half an hour thing. And let's see. Yeah, I'm not going to spend the whole video on, I swear, but I will just briefly note, I think it is accurate to the, let's see, I can never remember if it's historical account or like a legend, but, the thing about, the forces were about to give up before Odysseus came up with the you know, the Trojan horse. And Achilles' personality, I believe, is accurate to what we either know or what is thought to have been. But yeah, and I think it worked really well. That, like, you recognize almost immediately. I don't think they even put like a year or the setting or anything, but just like they said, Greece and Troy and Odysseus, and we're like, right, I get I know where we are in time and place. And yeah, the thing with yeah, so for several minutes, we're not 100% sure exactly where, why is this an episode of Eyes of Wakanda? Did someone just manage to like stealth in? They just wanted to do the battle of these battles. And then we see, I guess I should refer to him as Bakai, rather than the name that Achilles knows him by. And yeah, the moment we see him, like, he's a Wakandan, war dog, I guess, because he's leaving the right. I'm pretty sure that's how. Yeah, if you leave Wakanda as a spy, you're a war dog. Yeah, pretty sure that's how it goes. And yeah, like, I mean, it is genuinely such a compelling idea. Like, imagine 9 years undercover and just like, and he did care. He says there at the end, I killed. He stops just short of it. But yeah, I don't know if he was going to say best friend, which is, a legally distinct category. Um, I don't know if he would say, I am as I have always been, but yeah, they were friends. They did trust each other. It wasn't one-sided, and Bakai didn't not care. And that is something, yeah, for undercover people, I mean, he doesn't he doesn't care about the cause, but he does care about the person, maybe even some of the other people, but certainly because they say, oh, Achilles points out he saved all of our lives, not just Achilles. And yeah, for all that time, and ends up having to kill Achilles. Yeah, that is genuinely really engaging emotionally, and I think, yeah, like with the first one, great job on the fights. I quite appreciate that this one was very different choreography-wise, because we do see at the end, Noni is still around, so it's a different protagonist, and it's clearly some years later, but it's not like completely divorced from the first episode, which I felt like worked so far. And let's see, I think yeah, so the choreography, it was a bit more like fairly straightforward, you know, hand to hand with swords and sometimes shields, and then Wakandan tech. Um, less. It felt less like Chinese action movie, or inspired than the first episode, and more straightforward swords and sandals, epic kind of. And yeah, I felt like that worked. I don't think it would have worked as well if this had also been, like that. And they do manage to still have some really standout moments. It doesn't feel like it's just derivative, because like this could so easily have felt like sub 300, and you really don't want to go there. But the for example, the bit where Achilles, let's see, did he? Was it because I think he threw the sword into the shield of another, and then goes up and then like plunges it the rest of the way, and then into the guy's body. That was quite memorable, and I think that does. Yeah, the episode did a good job balancing emotion and battle. Let's see. They spent just enough time, on, like, we have the thing about, he says, if I left your side, who would put the coins for the ferryman on your eyes? And then by the end of the episode, he has to, and he does it. He doesn't like run away. Once Achilles is dead, he was only gonna run away when he thought Achilles, well, I guess I don't know if he thought he would be fine, because he thought that it did look like Achilles was going to lose that fight. But yeah, that is it's a good bit of setup and payoff with the coins mentioned, and then the thing about I guess he welcomes your death, which like isn't true, but you know, it's one of those things like that's a half truth. He was ready for Achilles to die, more so than Achilles was, and he did really mean it when he said he'll put the coins on, and he feels like he's responsible for that. I think that does pretty well. I like the secrecy about the, you know, he heals with this kind of fluid thing that he sprays on. And that was also, you know, he goes from taking a spear to the hand and still being an adventurer like you, to, you know, being willing to kill Achilles. You know, that's again a really great bit. It's just yeah, and the yeah, you know, he contacts home, and you know they're like, don't return home without the artifact. Which yeah, there you go. Those are the stakes. You know, no matter what, even if he has to kill Achilles, and that ends up happening, he's gonna get that artifact. I think that does pretty well bring us. Let's see. Right, the it was also very cool with the little like binoculars with like zoom function and everything, which based on the fact that it has like a purple color, I'm thinking vibranium, which yeah, I believe that they could make a vibranium binocular, you know. Oh, right, nocular, I guess it is, because the B, I'm pretty sure, means two. Um, I'm pretty sure there is the word for I like making it nocular. But the yeah, um, it having a zoom function, I can buy that when it's vibranium and Wakandan engineers and such. I think does that pretty well, and also just yeah, the camaraderie. Like you know, he flatters Achilles, who really needs cheering up at that time. And let's see. I already mentioned Achilles standing up for Bakai when he that was also, you know, the thing about it's still, I'm still getting used to being called by that name. You know, he disappeared into the other identity, the undercover identity, and also the fact. What was the other thing? I don't know what to say about that. Yeah, we have the thing about, you know, he can't go home again, which is also something that's been explored in other, you know, yeah. Once you in this show so far, they've talked about it's when you leave Wakanda, and it is, I mean, you know, the first time you truly leave home. You know, for a lot of Americans, it's if they live in a small town the first time they get to the city. You know, yeah, there's a an experience there had by many. Yeah, I think that does more or less bring us to the. I thought they did a good job with the. I like that the you know, the different forces were color coded. One was red, the other was blue, so that when you see one at a glance, you can tell which one it is, because otherwise their, you know, garb looks very, very similar. Okay, so I'm definitely gonna have words. We will have words about the big fight. It was epic. But before that, I think I do briefly want to talk about. So, yeah, a surprise to be sure, but a welcome one when we see Noni. And they refer to her as Director Noni. And yeah, I mean, she is basically proto Nick Fury. You know, their names are even similar, Noni and Fury, with the eye patch being called Director and having like sage advice and running missions, and you know, from you know, yeah, the headquarters and such, and yeah, And also, yeah, the thing about, where will Achilles be without a war to fight is also obviously a reference to Steve Rogers. I think that does yeah, I love the bit at the end where he's actually processing his emotions, it's actually, by complete coincidence, earlier today I watched Savage Speaks talk about Critical Drinker. Let's see, what was it? I think the title was something, I'm afraid I can't look it up because my wrist pain, but it was something like, the Critical Drinker is the most emotional stoic man, or something along those lines, and yeah, I'm thinking Critical Drinker, if he's watched, yeah, he probably doesn't or won't like, this man processing his feelings instead of being stoic. Anyway, excellent video by Savage Speaks. As usual, I think every video of his that I've seen has been really solid. And yeah, really love, men talking about, healthy masculinity. It's great. He's way more of an expert than I am. I try to sometimes talk about it, but I do not know. I do not have anywhere near the depth of knowledge and understanding that he has. I think that does. And I also like that director Noni. She basically says, "Do you need to deal with this? Cause I'm here." She doesn't walk away. She doesn't say, "Man up" or anything. She just lets him let it out because he needs to. And even says, I mean, I get it. If you can't stay in Wakanda, that's not wrong. You're not broken. You we can find a solution here. And clearly does appreciate what he gave, which is obviously extremely important thing for spies, but also I don't know, soldiers, for example. The Republican Party are always talking about how much they, oh, you gotta, crap, what's it? What's that? They have a slogan, something about the support the troops, I think it is. But when it comes to legislation, they sure don't. That just leaves the big fight. So yeah, when we saw Achilles left in a seeming, left for dead, and yeah, boy, would it be great if they actually made a third one. Although I guess they made Back for Blood, although I've heard bad things about that, unfortunately. Anyway, yeah, I was a little bit worried that there wasn't going to be a confrontation between Achilles and Bakai, which I'm so glad that turned out not to be the case. And yeah, this thing of, Paris and Helen, and I think the characterization for them is also accurate to what is believed to be the case. And he just takes the artifact, which, yeah, I mean, at some point they took it from, perhaps not Wakanda, because I feel like if they had known about Wakanda, they would probably have tried to conquer it, but someone stole it from Wakanda and got it to Helen, who just thought, oh, it proves, because rich people love to flaunt their wealth and power. That's not a woman thing, that's a rich person thing. I think that does pretty well. Yeah, but the fact that, yeah, Achilles shows up, sees Bakai standing there, sees the two, Paris and Helen fleeing, and Bakai doing nothing to stop them, and it just, it's further salt in the wound. This is what we're here for. What are you doing? And yeah, of course, to him, the only logical explanation here is that Bakai is Trojan, and some kind of, and spend all this time with them in order to have, them lower their guard, and then he could emerge and strike at the exact right time, sort of like a Trojan dog. And yeah, the conversation. I love that they didn't just jump into fighting. That's again something really really appreciate about a lot of MCU. They actually talk about what they feel and think. They don't just punch a lot. He was thrown out of King Arthur's court. Too much. Too much. I mean, Arthur eventually just had to ask him, "Why are you always hitting people?" And yeah, the fight, part of it is the fact that it's emotional, and also just they do such a good job of making it focused, because at first Achilles thinks it's just jewelry, and then he tries to break it, releases some energy because it's vibranium, realizes, he thinks of it as magic, and he says, Greece will possess this. So for a good chunk of I guess the entire fight, really, both of them want to end up with the artifact for different reasons, and to different, to an extent, Achilles just wants revenge. He feels so betrayed, which is not an entirely unjust feeling. And Bakai has to get it back. 9 years. He cannot lose now. With victory within his grasp, and yeah, neither of them. Bakai doesn't want to have to kill Achilles, but by the end he realizes there's no other way. And Achilles, he didn't want to believe that his friend would be capable of this, so it's very emotionally charged. And, the episode has made clear they're both incredible fighters, and yeah. Oh, right, the bit, okay, just briefly, I gotta talk. So the bit where they spot the one, there's several, they get two of the drunks, and then, the third one comes in, another Thor reference, and he spots them and goes for the bell, and Achilles throws a knife, and with his dying breath, the guy does manage to ring the bell. That was also really tense and a great, and I feel like I've heard that is like, yeah, they start out, Assassin's Creeding their way through, and then, they're discovered, someone rings the bell, and there's a big battle, so yeah. And it was also great the way they filmed and edited the Assassin's Creeding, the various, hitmanning around, just taking out these various guards. For example, love the bit where it's a shadow, you see, and which might also be a censor thing, but sometimes, most of the time I'm against censorship, but occasionally it can lead to creativity. I think Alfred Hitchcock is proof of that. Yeah, back to the, let's ring the bell. Back to the they went to their corners. They're ready for round 2 of the big fight. Yeah, at first it's, Achilles is just, I guess he thinks he's gonna win easily, but turns out it was not a bad idea to bring Wakandan Gauntlet to a sword fight. And yeah, that was a really cool idea, and the fact that, because it leads to creative choreography, because, we've seen 2 people fighting with 1 sword each. I'm not saying those are bad. I love those. I love fencing in fiction. Ultimately, I think this was more interesting. Like, hypothetically, they could have given him, like, a Wakandan blade or something, but I do think that, and also, like, the thing on his arm, I think he had it the entire episode, and we just didn't think much of it. Like, okay, I don't know. It's a gauntlet. People wear gauntlets. It's protective. But yeah, here at the end, it actually, he's able to block sword strikes with it, which does also mean that the rest of his body is vulnerable to the sword. So yeah, basically Achilles is trying to hit anything but the gauntlet, whilst Bakai is trying to block with the gauntlet. And yeah, at one point, like, he manages to knock the sword out of Achilles' hand. Achilles gets it back, attacks again. Just, yeah, some really, really cool. Yeah. I think that does bring us to the last bit with the, yeah. Yeah, by the end of the fight, you know, Bakai has killed Achilles. And they do such a good job. Like, it's TV-14, so they can't show that much blood. But if you think about, you know, I'm not saying I've seen it with my own eyes, but I have heard when blood gets into water, it thins tremendously, you know. So the fact that we're seeing, you know, we do see a pretty decent amount of blood when Achilles is lying there dying in the water. There's way more blood than we're seeing. What we're seeing is what's left when it's been thinned out, you know, so very nicely. Like, he bled profusely. And there were also a couple of other times where they do a good job hiding, you know, okay, that person probably bleeding, but it goes by fast. You know, we see them stabbed, and then, you know, and yeah, here and there, a little bit of blood. And I really do appreciate them pushing the TV-14 rating. I think yeah, just a really excellent episode. Right now I'm thinking Thursday is going to be the next episode, and probably last episode Monday. So and then the spoiler-free review as well. Yeah, let's see. It was also, you know, we knew it had to be. They couldn't resist, and I'm not saying they should have. Yeah, he indeed does die when Bakai cuts Achilles' tendon, and you know, to get him to calm down, he tells him, Achilles, heal.